I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation, the Delphi murders, the killing of two young girls that went unsolved for 5 years and resulted in the arrest of a man named Richard Allen, a man some believe has been wrongfully accused. Here's the story. It was a mystery that broke the hearts of two families, terrified a small community, and touched the world. The murders of two young girls, Abby Williams and Libby German. The case became known as the Delphi murders. The setting, a small Indiana town of just 3,000 people. From the beginning, investigators suspected it was someone local, which made it even more difficult for everyone from this small community. It started on February 13th, 2017. When Libby and Abby went hiking. The two teenagers were good friends and had the day off from school. The weather was unseasonably warm, but when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry and they began to search. Then the next day, the bodies of these two young girls were found, both victims of a brutal murder. Then, over the course of the next 5+ years, there were no answers, no arrests, just a series of disjointed clues, like two sketches that looked nothing alike, a video of the suspected killer, and a short audio recording of his voice. Then things got even stranger when police said they were looking for someone connected to an Anthony Shots social media account, which was not connected to the male model in the photos, but connected to this man who was arrested for possession of child porn. Then came the arrest of Richard Allen for the murder of the girls, someone who was not on anyone's radar, someone no one had ever mentioned as a suspect or a person of interest, but now prosecutors say is the Delphi killer. This arrest was absolutely jaw-dropping and shocking. No one was necessarily expecting it. No one knew who this guy was. I want you to take a look and a listen as I read from the probable cause affidavit, which is the basis for the arrest of Richard Allen. Investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer who interviewed Richard Allen in 2017. Did you hear that? They were looking over a tip from an officer who interviewed Richard Allen in 2017. That narrative stated Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 and 15:30. 1:30 to 3:30. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw three females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember the description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He did not take any photos or video. And then there's a little note there. It says, potential follow-up information. Who were the three girls walking in the area of Freedom Bridge? 2017 is when he's interviewed. That's when this all happened. But it took 5 years. Which brings me to my first question. And it's about the job done here. Why did it take so long for an arrest? If the suspect who ends up getting arrested and charged was interviewed in 2017 and said he was there, and then they have to go back and review that tip like this guy was not on the radar, nobody was talking about him, why? Let me bring in my guest. Joining me, investigative journalist and author of the book, Down the Hill, Susan Hendricks is with us. And also joining us, retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King. Great to see you both. Susan, you covered this story from the beginning. Like this guy not on the radar, but he's in a report, taken down by an officer. He's a man. He's a man who was there at the time, and they're more concerned about the three girls?
I know. And considering, Vinnie, what a small town it is, less than 3,000 people, as he mentioned it is mind-boggling when you think about it. Why did it take so long? Everyone's asking. We do know, though, he was listed in that document taken down, in the tip taken down by Dan Doolin, as Richard Whiteman on Allen Drive, not Richard Allen at Whiteman Drive. We don't know if he gave false information, Richard Allen, or if it was just written down incorrectly, but we do know that. And the superintendent said, for years, we just need that one last piece of the puzzle. And I believe if he is guilty, that he doesn't look like a person that would be able to do this. I don't know what a person like that looks like, but has a wife of 25 plus years at the time, a grown daughter who's married, who he recently walked down the aisle. So I don't think he was someone that people were looking at. And maybe Dan Doolin looked at him as just a witness, not as a suspect when he took down that tip.
Yeah, Mike King, it seems, because he's more interested in the three girls who were walking in the other direction. But my goodness, they have a video of the guy, so they know it's a male that they're looking for, who is by himself. This guy is a male. He said he was by himself, that he was there that day, and you take down the statement and then you forget about it for 5 years? Like, I understand the Scrivener's error that may have existed there in you know, messing up the last name with the address, et cetera, but they were able to figure it out 5 years ago when they looked at the tip again. This isn't just a tip, this is a lead, Mike.
Yeah, Vinny, it's a little bit disturbing when you think about it from that perspective. And I guess what I find myself doing is trying to give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt that maybe this officer did take the name down wrong, that this thing got cataloged when the leads were coming in. They had hundreds of leads that they're dealing with, and that somehow this gets lost in the mix. What really is troubling, and the part that I join the rest of us in scratching our head on, is that he looks like the guy in the video that they have. He says, I'm on the trail. He is coming forward and saying, hey, I saw three girls. So he's specific about certain pieces of information, but not about other pieces of information. He openly admits he has clothes that are similar. But the thing that I keep wanting to know that I can't get an answer to, Vinny, is how did he come into law enforcement's view? Did he walk into the police department and say, hey, I heard you had a murder out on Monon High Bridge Road Trail, and I just want to let you know I was out in the area? And if so, why was he doing that? Was he doing damage control, or was he really a concerned citizen that's saying, hey, I didn't see anything out there? So I think there's a lot more to this tale than we're getting right now with just this tip and lead. But then once it ends up in the Bureau's hands, whether it's filed into their records management system called Sentinel, and then that tip is extracted later, or whether it just is completely forgotten and is sitting on a yellow notepad somewhere, it takes them that 5 years to go back with a fresh set of eyes and start looking at the case and saying, holy cow, here's a guy who says he was down there on the trail, and we haven't interviewed him yet.
Like, I was there. Like, how many people were there that day? Not that many. Like, he said he was there. And just to put this in some perspective, I want to show you some of the press conferences and leads through the years going back to like 2017 up to 2021. Take a look.
Basically, we have identified the bodies of the two females that were found out yesterday. The bodies have been positively identified as Abigail J. Williams, 13, of the Delphi area, and Libby Rose Lynn German, 14, of the Delphi area. We have nobody in custody at this time. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track them down.
To the killer who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you. And you want to know what we know. One day, you will.
While investigating the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, detectives with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and the Indiana State Police have uncovered an online profile named Anthony Schatz. This profile was being used from 2016 to 2017 on social media applications, including but not limited to Snapchat and Instagram. The fictitious Anthony Schatz profile used images of a known male model and portrayed himself as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars. The creator of the fictitious profile used this information while communicating with juvenile females to solicit nude images, obtain their address, and attempt to meet with them. Investigators would like any individual who communicated, met, or attempted to meet the Anthony Schatz profile to contact law enforcement by utilizing the tip email, Abby and Libby tip at cacoshrf.com.
So Susan Hendricks is like 2019, he's saying, you're hiding in plain sight. Yeah, at the CVS. We interviewed you, yeah, back in 2017. I don't know if they realized it at the time or if they were bluffing. I'm just not sure. But then the Anthony Schatz thing years later kind of was like a curveball in all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And watching clips from all of those press conferences, I really think, Vinnie, the entire time they were putting those on, I think they were banking on a family member, someone close to that person. Because as you said, there were still shots, the voice, the walk. Doug Carter said to me, the superintendent, look, I've never had a case where we've had this much evidence ever and still haven't gotten the guy. And to touch on what Mike was saying, we have heard, I don't know this to be true yet, I believe we'll hear it at trial, that he approached Dan Doolin in some sort of grocery store parking lot. So let's say it was something was set up or it was a casual thing. And I'm wondering, did Dan Doolin know him? Was it kind of like, oh yeah, I was down there? But I don't think that Libby's video was released at that time. And I think if it was Richard Allen who was on the bridge, he wouldn't have come forward if he knew, oh my gosh, I'm on the video. There I am. But that is mind-boggling to know how much evidence was out there. And then the Anthony Schatz. I believe that the investigators have said, we're going to start from the beginning. Then Sheriff Tobe Lesenby, we're going to start from the beginning. And I think that's what they did. Then they find out that there was some communication with who the girls thought was Anthony Schatz. They went back over that. And they were big, Vinnie, as you know, on the tips. All we need is that one call. Abby and Libby need you. They need you. This could happen again. I mean, that was constant throughout this investigation. We need your tip. But in the beginning, I think what Mike said is true. There were so many tips coming in. Nothing like this had ever happened, of course, in such a small town in that area. And maybe it was just too overwhelming and something slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, but I would make different piles. I would make one pile with the people who said they were there, and then piles with people who have like other information. Anyway, Susan and Mike staying with us. Coming up next, where were the girls found?
Guys. Downhill.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Terrible.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot.
Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins next week, only on Court TV. Act.
The two girls were reported missing on Monday, February 13th. The bodies were discovered about 12:15 on the 14th in the woods just east of town here by volunteers that helped in the search of the children after they were reported missing to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Family has been notified. This is considered a double homicide investigation. No further information will be released at this time.
But some of the information that was released was a short video of the alleged killer. They refer to him as the bridge man, the man on the bridge. And then there's a recording of his voice. Take a look.
Guys. Downhill. Guys. Downhill.
So we heard from authorities that, yeah, they're found in the woods. And we know at some point they're on that bridge because they're taking that video. But where exactly were they? That's my next question. Where were the girls found? Let's bring back in our guests. Still with me, Susan Hendricks and Mike King. Susan, I'll begin with you. You can kind of describe this in a second. I want to go through a map, though, first, because I want to show everyone kind of the layout of the land here. February 13th, 1:49, Abby and Libby dropped off across from Mears Farm, which is located on the north side of County Road 300 North near the entrance of the trails. 2:13, video from Libby's cell phone shows the girls encountering that man on the southeast portion of the Monon High Bridge. That's the down the hill video that we've been talking about. The video shows the girls walking southeast on the bridge, and then the male orders the girls down the hill. February 14th, the girls' bodies are discovered, but there's also clothing found in Deer Creek, south of where the bodies were located. So you see the creek, both sides of the creek, things seem to be happening here. Susan, what can you tell us about the area where the girls were found?
Yeah, well, the girls were missing, as you stated, Vinnie, on the 13th. And officially, that search was called off later in the evening because when you're in that area, you realize how dense it is and how dangerous it could possibly be. So it was officially called off by law enforcement. But of course, everyone in the town, so many people remained that I remember Becky telling me, Libby's grandmother, that it just looked like this orange glow because everyone had flashlights and stayed out there. But it was difficult to navigate and difficult to find your way. But they kept on searching through the night until the next morning. And the girls were discovered a little before noon, I believe, that next day on the north side across the creek, because you hear the man on the bridge say in that audio that Libby was able to record, girls down the hill. And of course, as you stated, some clothing was found as well. And investigators were trying to piece together exactly what happened to them in those moments. Did they suffer? Did they try to make a run for it? What exactly happened? And it will be interesting to see. And I don't think we ever really know, but it's just horrific to think about what happened to those girls. But they were found the next day on the north side, about a quarter mile from the trails, Vinnie.
Mike King, as we went through in trying to track where they were, crossing the creek, one man, two victims. How does that work? Because I think the defense will try to paint perhaps a different picture of what's going on here, but how does one man with two victims pull this off? Because they're traveling some distance here.
Yeah, I think we're seeing evidence that would support a theory that I'm going to pitch, and that is that a person with a weapon, a gun in this particular case, would certainly gain immediate control over the girls. And so in a confrontation where he's just a creepy guy on the bridge, they might say no and they might try to run. Even if he pulled a knife and they had some distance between them, they might try to run away. But to immediately gain that kind of control, knowing that a bullet is found at the scene, and I know that this is a challenging point for a lot of folks out there, but that bullet, that unspent bullet being forensically tied back to a weapon recovered in Richard Allen's house makes me really think, is it possible and probably more probable that a weapon was displayed and the girls were ordered down the hill? And people like you and me, Vinnie, we're gonna respond. We don't have an evil mind and an evil intent. And so somebody that just says, hey, go down the hill, we're gonna think, I'll do whatever you want, just let's get this over with and get on your way. But he immediately gains control, and I believe that's the way in which he does it. And it really helps us understand those different crime scenes that we often talk about here on Court TV, because we see this initial contact site on the bridge where the two groups of people, the predator and the victims, come into space and time. And then we see the crime scene where we believe the crime scene happened. And there might be multiple places. And then we see possibly even a shift. If the clothing is dispersed in one place and the bodies are in another, is it possible there are multiple crime scenes and then a final disposal site where those girls are left after they've been killed. We really start to piece this thing together, and we start to understand the behavior of the predator. And so in short, easy to gain control over two people if you have a weapon, and their mindset is, I'd never do anything mean, but the predator's mindset is, this is exactly what I'm going to do.
And Susan, as we look at this area, I mean, the remoteness of it all, because this is going to take time. Whatever the killer did here takes a little bit of time, and you're managing two victims at once, but it's such a remote area, and it involves some private property as well, I believe.
Absolutely, and that is what the superintendent, Doug Carter, always believed, in all the investigators. Once they saw where the bodies of Abby and Libby were found, that this person has to be local. And as soon as I saw the bridge, because when you see it, and you see the video that Libby took of him walking casually, it looks one way to you. When you see this massive structure, 63 feet in the air, and you see how long it takes you to get there, it took me about 10 minutes walking on the trails, you think, this guy has to be local. They have to know this area. And I've repeated so many times, it happened in the middle of the day, which is what they believe. So how can this happen in the middle of the day? Then you see it, then you understand when you're down there and the denseness. So I believe the person who did this knew the specific areas that he could be possibly hidden and maybe planned this for a while, but he absolutely knew that area.
Susan Hendricks and Mike King, thank you so much for your help and your insight. Really do appreciate it. More to go. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the Delphi murders, the brutal killing of Abby Williams and her friend Libby German. Two innocent young girls who deserved so much better, who deserved to live their lives, but who were taken away way too soon. Here's their story. Teenagers Abby Williams and Libby German were best friends living in the small rural community of Delphi, Indiana. On February 13th, 2017, the girls had a day off from school, so they decided to go on an outdoor adventure. They were dropped off near the Monon High Bridge. While on that bridge, Libby recorded a man with her phone uttering the words, "down the hill." It was down the hill where Libby and Abby would be murdered. Prosecutors say the man on the bridge is responsible, and that man is Richard Allen. But Allen and his attorney say prosecutors have it all wrong. They say Allen is innocent, and it was someone else on the bridge that day who took the lives of these two innocent girls. It's an unusual case. There is a lot of evidence, and there's a lot more that we don't know about that hasn't been made public yet. But the one thing that was made public was that image of the man on the bridge, and this was the guy everyone was looking for years. So when Richard Allen is arrested, okay, they're saying this is the bridge guy. So let's put them next to each other. And yeah, you could see some potential similarities, the build of the body, etc. Obviously, the picture on the left would be a few years afterwards, but it seems that it would generally fit. And I think for prosecutors, you put these things together and it makes sense and could make sense to a jury. But there were other people who were on the radar, including a man named Ron Logan. There's Ron Logan. There's the bridge guy. Do they look similar? I mean, is there that much of a difference between these two? And we talked about this a lot because in this case, we've been covering it before the arrest and obviously after the arrest as well, moving up, getting closer and closer to a trial. But there are people who were looking at other suspects other than the man who ultimately was arrested and charged, Richard Allen. This is Chris Todd. He's author of a book. He wrote a book about this called Forest for the Trees. Here's what he told us.
To me,
I opine Ron Logan is bridge guy. And I'm not trying to mess up the trial. I'm not trying to mess with the attorneys. For what my book is going to say is Ron Logan is bridge guy, and then that's it. Okay? And his height, his size, his walk. I've been on this for 4 years, close to the families, close to law enforcement. I was shunned in the beginning, and I don't need to harp on that, but Ron Logan, I believe, is bridge guy, and he is definitely involved in this. If Richard Allen is, that's to be seen right now.
And he's not the only one who has said that in the past. So that brings me to my first question here, which is about Ron Logan. And the question, could Ron Logan be the bridge guy? Is that possible? Could he be the man who was on video? Let me bring in my guests who are going to help us work through all of this. Co-host of the Murder Sheet podcast, who has been intensely covering this story for years. Kevin Greenlee and Anya Kane is with us. Also joining us, language analysis expert, Lieutenant Robert Schaefer. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Anya and Kevin, I want to put up another picture here. And this is, again, the bridge guy and Ron Logan from a WRTV interview the next day. So if we take a look at that, and see what their outfits look like. And a lot of people noticed, oh, the hat, the jacket. Yeah. So Anya and Kevin, you've been covering this for so long. Is it possible that Ron Logan could be the bridge guy here?
Well, Vinny, I think when you look at how this case has progressed over time, you see that at one point, investigators were looking very strongly at Ron Logan. They were searching his house. They were throwing him in jail for a probation violation. So I don't think any sort of energy was saved when it came to really scrutinizing Ron Logan. But at the end of the day, nothing happened. They let him go. There was no evidence, seemingly, that tied him to this crime. So when you have people who are saying essentially, oh, well, he has a similar outfit, we know for a fact that Richard Allen admitting to also having a similar outfit. A lot of men dress like this in this part of Indiana. I really feel like at this point, Ron Logan is kind of a sideshow. Ron Logan is something that not even the defense attorneys are talking about.
Now, and Lieutenant, the reason I brought you on the show is because in 2017, Inside Edition spoke to Ron Logan on his property about the murders and even requested that Logan repeat the words "down the hill" on camera. Let's take a listen.
I asked Ron Logan to repeat those same chilling words.
Down the hill.
Okay, it's a short snippet, Lieutenant, I understand. Now I want you to listen to the person who's been referred to as the bridge guy, the killer in this case, saying those same words.
Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill.
So, Lieutenant, is there any way that anyone could do an analysis based upon those samples of the words to determine whether or not they come from the same source, the same person?
Well, there is technology out there that could probably accomplish that, but just with the human ear, it would be virtually impossible. He sounds like 1,000 other guys that are from his area, so it would require some some digital technology to do a comparison based on what the reporter asked him to say and what was recorded in the video.
And Anya and Kevin, do we know if any analysis of that recording has been done, whether it's relative to Ron Logan or Richard Allen or anyone else?
Well, one thing to keep in mind, Vinny. Yeah, no, we're not aware of any either. It's possible that some is being done, but our understanding is that you often need more words in order to really match somebody's voice. So what we have now are guys down the hill, and that may not be enough to have something that's truly relevant for trial.
Now, that's what's been released. Do we know if there's any more of this recording that was made?
No, it remains a mystery.
Wow. So, Lieutenant, you know, we look at him. Does he look like him? It's tough to tell, right? Does he sound like him? And what you're telling me is that the analysis that you would do with the naked ear is you're just hearing the way people speak in a certain area of the country. So you're not going to get a clear opinion as to whether you can definitively say that is the voice.
No, absolutely not. Not just with the human ear. And you're going to get people who want this, want him to be the guy on the bridge. And so they're going to be leaning towards, oh yeah, I think it sounds just like him. And there's people that say, no, it's not. And they're leaning away. So it's just way too subjective. There's this other, you know, to ask the question, is he the guy on the bridge, involves a whole lot more facets to the investigation than just the image and the voice. Those two components alone would be impossible to rule him out, because I have to admit, looking at him, yeah, it could be him. But I wouldn't say it's even a 50-50 proposition at that point. There's a whole lot of other things that I'm pretty sure investigators are looking into that to kind of confirm or not confirm that.
Absolutely, and he was looked at, as Anya and Kevin have told us. Let me ask you, Anya and Kevin, though, this is a guy who lied or tried to get someone to lie about his alibi the day of the murder, and my understanding is he owns the property where the girls were found?
Yeah, Logan actually owns the property where the murders happened. And as you correctly noted, he did lie about his whereabouts that day. He wasn't supposed to be driving, and he did drive out of town when he wasn't allowed to. That was a violation of his probation. So certainly there were a lot of very good and valid reasons to look at this man. And from everything we understand, investigators looked at him hard and did absolutely everything they could to try to find out if there was a connection between him and these awful crimes. And they were never able to establish one.
And you've got to think, like, you know, he's lying about his alibi. The bodies are found on his property. You've got to do the thorough investigation in the highest profile case that this jurisdiction has ever had. So I've got to believe that's all been done here. The other thing about Ron Logan is he passed away. Do we know the circumstances of that?
He passed away of COVID a couple of years back. Okay,
so when it comes time for this trial, if anyone speaks of him, he won't be able to speak for himself. So that part of the investigation is over. Wow. All right. Lieutenant Bobby Schaefer, big thank you to you for your help tonight. Appreciate it. Anya and Kevin are going to stay with us. Still to come, why are there two completely different sketches of the suspect?
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
I did not want him dead.
A renowned snake breeder is shot and killed at his breeding facility.
If the devil was a person, I believe that was her.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All new Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
One of the most confusing parts of the Delphi investigation for me, before the arrest was made, and it's even confusing now after the arrest as well, where we had a video, right? There's a video of the person they believe is the killer, but then sketches were also released. I say the plural sketches. Take a look. Remember, this is one suspect. Two sketches of one suspect. They look nothing alike. They look different age, they look different size. I mean, there is very little in common between these two sketches of the suspect, which brings me to my next question, which I think is an important one in this case, which is why? Why are there two completely different sketches if it's one suspect and you got the guy on video? Like, he's on video. and you have the sketches to supplement, I guess, the video, or some of the sketches. One sketch came out first. Still with me, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast, and joining us, courtroom sketch artist Vicki Berenger has also done sketches of witnesses as well. So I want to take a look at the history of these sketches to give everyone sort of a little bit of a framework here for the discussion. February 2017, witness description to the sketch artist was the man on the Monon High Bridge, right? White, age 20, brown, curly hair, medium build. Okay, so that's this sketch, which is done in February of 2017, right around the time of the murder. Now, we pulled this from the defense memorandum. The Unified Command, which were investigators in this case, did not release the witness sketch to the public for over 2 years. Instead, they first released another witness sketch, also called Sketch 1. The other sketch was illustrated by FBI sketch artist Plants from Detroit on June 19th, 2017. So this is in June, months later, and released to the public in July of 2017. Roughly 2 years later, in March of 2019, the witness met with Tony Liggett, frustrated that her sketch, sketch number 2 that you're looking at here, had not been released to the public. So the first sketch, which is sketch number 2, not released to the public, but sketch number 1 is. The witness was frustrated because sketch 1, which had been released to the public 2 years before, did not match the man that she observed on the High Bridge. The witness even commented that sketch 1 was wrong. Then, the next development, according to the memorandum, April 22nd, 2019, the Unified Command, the investigators here, released the witness's sketch number 2 to the public. In fact, upon its release, the superintendent, Doug Carter, commented that the man in sketch 2, the one on the right, was responsible for the murders. Also, at the time of the release of sketch 2, Doug Carter also stated that sketch 1 had now become secondary to the investigation. What's going on here? Why are there 2 sketches? Why are they so different? Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, I'm putting a little bit of context to all this. I'm trying to understand, because the man who got arrested looks like sketch number 1, which the commander was telling us is the secondary sketch.
Yeah, I think all of this is a pretty good indication that while sketches can be an incredibly useful tool for law enforcement and can certainly help in cases, sometimes when they're rolled out in a way like this, it can be a bit more confusing. That being said, I think when you're looking at this, you're probably seeing law enforcement basically trying to figure this out as they go along. I mean, at that point, it had been unsolved for a number of years, and perhaps they were looking at a different avenue and they thought this would be a good idea. I think when you're talking about sketches, you're talking about an artistic rendering of a human being's minimal interaction with a suspect. And so that's all colored by our experiences. If someone's older than me, I might think of them as much older than they really are if I'm a teenager, or if I'm an older person and I see somebody, I might think of them as a young man, even if they're middle-aged. So I kind of think that given how subjective they are, the important thing is, do these witnesses think that the person they saw and described in these sketches, do they think that that is that man walking right there on those planks? Do they think it's the same guy in the video? And I think if they can agree on that, it's less of a problem for prosecution.
Yeah, but to me, I look at the guy on the bridge and I look at sketch number 1. Like, that looks like him to me, because the person on the bridge does not look like a young person. Okay, Vicki, let me ask you, and my understanding is that the sketch is only as good as the description from the witness, right? From your perspective, is it possible that the same person seen by 2 different people could end up being described and the results be like these sketches are?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that they can be very different. They are different people talking about what they saw. And I also think that these 2 sketches are a lot more similar than you think. I was looking at the nose and the eyes and the eyebrows, and especially the lips. They actually seem a lot more similar, but the hair and the hat and the facial hair really changes it quite a bit.
So what you're telling me is two people, and I know I say this all the time because eyewitness testimony of something happening is direct evidence, and it's often the most unreliable of all evidence in a case, because 3 people see a car crash, you're going to get 3 different stories. So from your perspective, Vicki, the same thing could account for why these sketches are so different, that it's not, we're not talking about 2 different people, we could be talking about the same person.
Right. The one sketch doesn't have a hat, doesn't have facial hair. And maybe the person didn't remember seeing that. It's really hard to know. But the nose looks similar, the lips look similar, the eyes and the eyebrows do. So if you take away the shape of the face and the hat, it could be the same person. That's how I see it. It's just that they are done so differently, and it seems to me they might have been done by a different artist.
Oh, I think it was a different artist for sure. I think it was, and there's a separation in time as well. Anya and Kevin, let me ask you, as you were covering this story and covering this investigation, and these sketches come out, what were you thinking?
I think our reaction was initially very similar to what you just articulated. They look very different. What's going on here? But as we looked into it and found out, learned more about how these are just the perspectives of different eyewitnesses, we talked to experts in the field like Vicki. I think her perspective on this is just wonderful and very insightful. And we came to understand that even though to the eyes of lay people like us, it does look very different, there is a basic similarity there. And what's really going to matter, is Anya indicated, that at the trial, if these witnesses get on the stand, would they be able to say that, yes, we believe the defendant is the man we saw that day?
Why has there ever been an answer as to why they held the first sketch that was done that ends up being sketch number 2, but it was the first one that was drawn? Any reason why it was held back from the public and not released?
We're not aware of any reason why one was released first and then the other later on. So I imagine that there were probably some strategic conversations going on about which one they felt was more credible or worth looking at first. But we are not privy to those, and so we unfortunately do not know.
And I guess the bottom line will be what the witnesses say when the witnesses get on the stand and testify about all of this. I want to thank you so much, Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, Murder Sheet podcast, folks. Every single detail of the case is in that podcast. You can download it and you'll find out for yourself. Vicki Berenger giving us some insight into the world of sketches. We do appreciate your expertise and your time. All right, folks, there's a lot about this case that bothers me. And it begins with the investigation. It took 5 years to arrest a man who should have been on the radar on day 1. And the problem is, cases and evidence don't usually age well. And that's the case here. The older the case gets, the more difficult it is to win that case at trial and prove it. The other problem here is the lack of transparency coming from our system of justice in Indiana, from investigators to prosecutors to the judge. It's a problem that may very well result in many questioning the results of the trial. And from my perspective, that's not a good thing. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.